Besides the obvious, like not wearing something appropriate, not showering, or being late, there are some definite mistakes that you want to avoid doing during your next job interview so that you can make that great first impression that you want to. I'm going to share 5 things that you must avoid to stand out and shine above the rest, and I'm going to begin with how much to talk. Talking too much is going to be a little bit of a dance, because if you don't speak enough, then you're going to appear to be shy, you're going to seem reserved, you might miss out on the chance to say something that's really important about your skills and abilities and experience, things that might not be evident on your resume. The whole point of the interview is for the hiring team to get to know you a little bit better, more than just the piece of paper that you have submitted in advance. And your personality is going to be hard to assess if you don't talk. Now, conversely, saying too much is also not a great idea. It can be annoying. It can raise red flags. People do talk a lot when they get nervous. Some people do anyway. And that's a thing. So if this is you, if you know you are a talker, then at least being aware of this can help you tone it down a little bit and keep your answers as long as they need to be and yet concise. A tip is that what you can always do at the end of the interview is ask if there are any answers that you have given that the hiring person or people would like you to expand upon. That is an excellent way to add to the answer that you gave and to ensure that you weren't speaking too little in case there were things that they really wanted to know that you didn't share. The second mistake is not being prepared. You cannot wing an interview. If there is some reason why this interview came up all of a sudden and you had absolutely no time to prepare, then people are going to generally be understanding of that. But if this interview is one that has been booked with even 1 or 2 days leeway before the actual event happens, then there are no excuses for you to be unprepared. I have a whole playlist on all of the things that you need to do before you get to the interview, so I'm not going to spend time talking about that now. But let me say this. Preparing for an interview is not like cramming. You cannot just do it the night before or the hour before and expect to have really good results. Time in preparation might seem like time that nobody notices, but honestly, people do notice how prepared you are, and you will feel calmer and more confident in your answers if you have prepped them in advance. Preparing well will put you ahead of many who don't bother. The third mistake to avoid is being negative about anything. You don't want to be negative about your former employer, the former company that you worked for, the team, the manager, even a coworker. You don't want to bring negativity into the interview because that is the interview red flag of doom. It is not something that people appreciate because of course they're going to think, wow, I wonder how she's going to talk about this company when she leaves, or I wonder how she's going to talk about me as a manager if the manager is in the room. So it's not a cool idea, and it will pretty quickly put a negative mark on your chances of getting the position. Now, you may have had a terrible experience where you worked last. You might have worked with a bully. There might have been a toxic work environment. There might have been just a horrible situation going on at work. That's all real and legitimate. But the thing about talking about that is that you need to, and this is part of the practicing piece, the preparation piece, is to practice putting it in terms of what you learned, of how you grew, of what experiences you gained from being in a challenging situation. It's okay to say it was a challenging situation without going into any details, and you know, you'll be respected for putting it that way. And then talk about what you learned, talk about how you grew, talk about the insights that you gained from being in that situation and having to manage and grow and develop. If we haven't met yet, I'm Jen Swanson, your career coach. I help you to get the job, love your work, advance your career, and love yourself along the way. Hit that like button if you are getting value out of this so far. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And let's get to the very last 2 mistakes to not make in your next job interview. Now, I am going to get super practical here because these things might sound or seem obvious, but you would be surprised at how many people don't pay attention, especially to this next tip that I'm going to give you. Even though it seems like a nothing thing to be doing, the message and the communication that it sends is one that can make a big difference. Having sat as an interviewer in a situation where somebody did this, it appeared disrespectful, casual, and presumptuous an awful lot, and all because you brought in your cup of coffee or your bottle of water with you when you went into the interview, right? Where I live on the West Coast, nobody goes anywhere without a bottle of water or a bottle of coffee. A bottle of coffee. It's ubiquitous. Everyone has one. And I feel like I have forgotten my phone if I go somewhere without my jar of water, my glass of water, my reusable water bottle. It's not a bad thing to be hydrated, right? It's a good thing. But in a job interview, it is not professional. If the person offers you a glass of water, a cup of coffee, and does that as you are coming into the interview room, fantastic. Take it, drink it, that's fine, no problem. But bringing your own in is not seen as a good move. Now, I will give one exception to this, and this is in a virtual interview situation. It would be okay to have a very obvious clear glass of water in case you need to have a sip while you're speaking. But I would leave the smoothies off screen. I would leave the granola bars and the snacks and the Doritos out of the way. Do not be crunching or eating or drinking anything other than clear water during your virtual interview, again, for the look of being professional. And the very last tip that I have, the last mistake I have for you to avoid today, is specifically for being on video, for a virtual interview. And this is to not have backup technology. If you've got an interview set up and you've got a device and something happens and you don't have the password, or an update needs to happen and you don't have an alternative, you may end up missing out on the interview altogether. So make sure that if you are on Zoom or Skype, you know the passwords to get in, that you have updated to the latest version so that you're not, Zoom does weird things if you aren't updated to the latest version. One time I tried to go to a meeting and there was absolutely no sound, and it was just an update that hadn't updated yet. So I missed the first part of the meeting because I had no sound and I couldn't hear. So it's things like that. When I'm talking about preparation, make sure you know the passwords, make sure you know the links that you're supposed to use, make sure you've checked your background and all of the things that are in behind, that you've got a quiet place, that you know that if something goes wrong with your computer, if it's not charged, if there's something happening with that, you've got a phone or an iPad or some other device that you can jump onto if need be. Even a telephone would be better than nothing. So that would mean you would need a phone number to be able to access. So get prepared, and this is especially important if you are doing it using your own technology. Now, of course, sometimes there is a storm. I often am in windstorms, and I remember recording podcasts when there was a windstorm and there was great possibility I would lose power. I just let people know that in advance, and so they can be prepared that if something natural happens that can't be prevented, that they know what's happening. Make sure that in your preparation, not only are you prepared for your interview questions and answers, but you're technologically prepared if it is a virtual interview. And speaking of virtual interviews, I do have a video that I made quite a while ago on how to prepare, especially your background, for a virtual interview. And I will see you over there.